Hey guys, this is Christo Witch from Tumblr. I said I was going to do a question and answer via video, and I got a lot of your questions written down so I can answer them. This is like my 18th take because I'm really awkward and it's really hard for me to do this. So I feel like this is going to help me, with my social anxiety and things like that. So the first question out of the gate is, are you single? The best way for me to answer that is basically it's classified. If anything big happens in my personal life, I'm pretty sure I'll let you know. But right now, nothing's really going on. The next question is, are you straight? I am straight. I've just never been anything else. What's your strangest experience dealing with your craft? Everything. All of it. How is it not strange? I mean, when you grow up in a world where you're told, that's your imagination, it's fantasy, and then you do a spell and you ask a deity to help you, and all of a sudden it comes true, or the next day you've got a job that you didn't realize that you were gonna have, or it's all strange. There's no way for it to be anything else but strange, in all honesty. Do you regret your fluffy days? I don't think anyone should regret their fluffy days, in all honesty. I mean, it's a point in time in everyone's life where you're gonna have to learn something, and you're gonna try to assume that you know more than everyone around you. And because most of the time the fluffy years are in your teen years, you're already trying to rebel against your parents, and now these people online are trying to tell you that you're wrong, and your first response is to rebel against them too. And so it's a learning point, and it's probably one of the more embarrassing parts of when you're learning to be in this community. But I wouldn't regret it, because if I didn't have it, then I wouldn't learn everything that I was doing wrong, or what I was saying wrong. Now, the goals of a witch Photoshop that I did is still circulating after 3 years, so apparently I must have done something at least pretty, but I don't regret it. It's more like something I look back on and I laugh because of how strange it really was. What are sources of info to be wary of? Well, when you pick up a book of witchcraft and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is them basically saying that Wicca and witchcraft are the same thing, you either need to take that book with a grain of salt or put it back. You have to be able to learn to read through some of this stuff, because a lot of people have a tendency to write misinformation, and if you don't understand and you assume that everything you read is automatically true, and you're not used to it, then I mean, you're just going to end up in the fluffy stage. If you're not used to cross-checking and researching everything that you get your hands on, then you're going to end up with some misinformation. So pretty much every source out there is probably going to have something wrong with it. So the best way to do it is to research and cross-examine everything you read. How do you make holy water? Well, honestly, my holy water is rainwater. I usually just stick some jars out when it's fixed to be a big storm, kind of like it is right now outside, and I fill it up, and then I say the Lord's Prayer over it, and I have a jar of holy water. It's really not that hard. Sometimes I put salt in it for that extra purifying, but in general, the holy water I use is not that impressive. You can actually probably go to churches if you want to, like a couple of different, I know my Methodist church had a thing for holy water. I know all Catholic churches do. I'm pretty sure most churches do. The thing is that you have to be willing to, talk with the people there, and you could probably get your hands on actual holy water. You just have to be very careful with that. Your philosophy on Christian paganism. Okay, the way that I view Christian paganism is when God said, thou shalt have no other gods above me, that meant that he was acknowledging that there were in fact others, but he was the top dog. He is the top god. And when you're working in Christo-paganism, when you're working in Christo-paganism, it becomes a thing where as long as you are worshiping God and he is the utmost, the highest, then you can work with others, as long as they're willing to be under and seen as under and only worked with and not so much worshipped, which kind of cuts out the Greek pantheon because they have their own hierarchy of I'm the biggest, I'm the baddest, so don't put me underneath anyone else. So it's a fine line, and it's one of those things where it takes a little finagling to get it exactly right to be able to not offend everyone around you. What type of Bible do you use? I actually use multiple different types. Like I said, I like to cross-check and cross-reference and research, and so I use the King James, and then I use the NIV, and then I cross-check both of those with stuff online, and so it's not so much the Bible I use as what I generally gain from what I'm reading, because I use so many different Bibles. Typical tools you always use in your magic. I have my altar, which has my elemental candles, my God candle, my Jesus candle, my Holy Spirit candle, and then I have my Sting replica, that's my Athame, and then I have a hand-carved wand that I use that I carved myself. I have a chalice that I got from the dollar store. I have not so much that I use a lot of tools. Like, I literally collect things. Like, I have an offering bowl that's made to look like crow's feet that I got from Target during Halloween. I have a incense plate that you've seen pictures of that I made in ceramics. There's just a bunch of different things that I use, and most of them either handmade or picked up randomly throughout me just finding things. Do you go to church? If I could find one that I liked, I would. It's not that I don't go to church or I just refuse to go to church. It's more I'm in the Bible Belt in Alabama, and it's hard for me to find a church that feels like they would be open enough to include me. When I go home to Mississippi, where my parents live, I usually go to church with them. Sometimes, usually it's the church that I go to that I was baptized in, and then there's the other church that my mother plays piano at, and that is in the town where my high school was, that I will go to from time to time. But in general, no, I don't go to church at the moment because I just haven't found one that I'm really happy with. Who is the archangel you work with the most? I actually work with the 4 of them, kind of balanced, because whenever I really call on the archangels, it's because I'm doing a circle, or it's because I'm needing some type of protection and I want that balance of all of them. My favorite, though, is Uriel, because he comes across as water, and he's a little bit emo and kind of on the darker side, and I just gravitated to him from the beginning, and I never really questioned it. I just assumed that was where I was supposed to be. Advice for someone curious to Wicca, to kind of get their feet wet and see what it's really all about. I'm not really sure about Wicca. If you meant witchcraft, I mean, a lot of people, like I said, with the misinformation, they have a tendency to mix the two up. My advice to you is to read and research and cross-examine and make up your own mind about what it is. You have to read, you have to understand, you have to use your brain and use your instinct to be able to understand what it is, and if it's right for you. You have to base it off your gut feeling. If there's a path that you want to work on and you get into it and it just doesn't feel right, then there's a good chance that it's just not right for you. So you have to research and you have to learn, and that's just the basis of it. That's the biggest advice I can get, is read. And that's all the questions I have for right now, and I'm pretty sure this was really awkward, and I'm really sorry if it was. Hopefully next time I'll have more questions, or at least a bigger question that I can go really in depth with. So for a first one, I don't think this was so bad, and I will see y'all later.